Well, it's not easy following Scott Lively or any of these gentlemen. And I just want to say that no man in this country, almost in the world, has suffered at the hands of the homosexual movement as much as Scott Lively.
That's right.
And that is a fact. But I want to talk here about what the gay activists, and I use that term because out of shorthand, because it's cumbersome to always say homosexual, what they call the revolution. The media portrays what's happened with the LGBTQ movement as, well, the heir to the civil rights movement, of course, which is the biggest scam ever perpetrated, one of the biggest scams, political scams ever perpetrated on the American public. But the activists call it a revolution. This is a book by a gay activist called Gay Power, an American Revolution. And I was thinking about, Scott was, last night Scott was talking about some of the lies that have come down the pike that he's experienced. And I was thinking, what are the principles? What is the nature of this revolution? First of all, I think most important for us these days is that this is a media revolution.
Yes.
The media is now part of the homosexual, transgender revolution, and whatever comes next. I'm old enough, I've been at this almost as long as Scott, more than 25 years, and I remember when the media actually included pro-family voices in their stories, which never happens anymore, right? Because the media is part of the gay trans revolution. The revolution is an incremental revolution. It's a destructive revolution. It's an anti-normal revolution. This is a revolution that's waging war on normal. It's an anti-God revolution. It's a humanist. It's a humanist revolution. I want to get into that because this revolution is really, if you want to understand it at its core, it's people who are desperate to rationalize their sin.
That's right.
That is the core of the movement.
Exactly right.
And because they are so desperate, they're more committed than we are because most people don't care if it doesn't affect them. And then they turn it, and because they have been so good at marketing the revolution, they made it a relational revolution. If you know anybody who struggles, who has a homosexual problem, then they've used that to hook you in. So it's really an ingenious revolution. But it is a deviant sex revolution.
Yes.
It's an anti-nature revolution. I got a book here by Mass Resistance put out. Look at this. This is 2 inches thick. What the medical and psychological research reveals. The health hazards of homosexuality. Okay? This is the stuff that the media won't put 2 and 2 together.
That's right.
Hundreds of thousands of men, some identified as gay, some who just practice homosexuality, had their lives cut short due to HIV/AIDS, and yet the media can't put together that they're, and to this day. Do you know there's a syphilis revival because of men who have sex with men?
That's right.
It's a revival. Syphilis is coming back.
That's right.
But the media doesn't put that together. They can't make that connection
That's right.
because it's a media revolution.
Yes, sir.
It's an anti-truth revolution.
Yes, sir.
We have 2 men here, Stephen Black and Greg Quinlan, people who came out of the homosexual lifestyle, and yet the media behaves as if that is not possible. Because they hear zealots, homosexual activists like Wayne Besson, who say it's not possible. And so the media, have you ever wondered why even on Fox News, you don't have a Greg Quinlan or a Stephen Black invited onto Fox News, the conservative network, to tell that story? So even on the Fox News, there's no curiosity about these people who've come out of homosexuality. Which is, I would think as a journalist, I used to work for the Washington Times. I was a journalist before I was an activist. You'd think there'd be some curiosity. But even Fox News, and I wrote a whole paper on this for Cliff Kincaid, America's Survival, even Fox News is part of this revolution. And you'll note that Fox News is now gendering transgenders according to the false, biologically inaccurate genders. That's Fox News. And Fox News has also supported the homosexual activist lobby for years, giving $10,000 a year to the National Lesbian and Gay Journalists Association, which purports to be a professional organization for gay journalists, but is actually an advocacy organization which is helping to push media how to always mold the stories according to the preferences of the homosexual activists themselves. The homosexual, bisexual, transgender revolution is also an anti-reality revolution.
Sure it is.
And it wasn't just, there's a tendency now in the conservative movement, okay, we're talking about transgenders now. But before the transgenders, remember, the transgender lobby learned everything it does from the gay movement.
That's right.
Before there was transgender ideology, or before it grew, there was gay ideology, which was also anti-reality. Because what that movement says is we are a separate species of human beings who reset our own rules. We get to live by different rules. And think about what's been accomplished by this radical agenda. They actually redefined marriage to accommodate their problem. It's an anti-moral revolution and an anti-freedom revolution.
Yes, it is.
And we forget that we've already lost freedom because of this revolution in the United States. Romer v. Evans in Colorado effectively banned, that was a measure which actually negated a statewide civil rights law. I think if I got that correct, Scott. Negated the people of Colorado got together, they were outspent, outgunned by the gay lobby, by the liberals, but they still won. They passed an amendment which, and I think this was 1996. Scott, does that sound right?
Well, 92, Amendment 2 passed. 96,
It was
Kennedy's.
Kennedy they overturned an amendment which had basically said we are not going to define rights by changeable behavior. And so we lost rights then. Now we actually see this movement banning, as Scott said. You can become anything now. A young person can become anything. Pansexual, bigender, agender. You can't even keep track anymore. There's so many permutations. And yet you can't become normal.
That's right.
What is that?
What is it?
You can be gone too far. But yeah, my only problem with the title of this press conference is they've been gone too far like decades now. So it's a series of gone too fars in this incremental revolution. But because of the desperation, the odd thing about this humanist revolution is they have the need to redefine everything and to force the rest of society to accommodate their internal need for affirmation. So that's why they have to force the Christian baker. You'd think, get another baker. Get another Christian photographer. You have to force the Christians to participate in your so-called marriage. No, but they want to drive the entire society to affirm their chosen lifestyle.
Gone too far.
Yes. It's an all-consuming revolution. Think about the Boy Scouts. What's the progression of the Boy Scouts?
Yes.
Believe it or not, it was a sexual orientation law of the very type we're talking about federalizing now with the Equality Act. It was a sexual orientation law in New Jersey that passed, which sexual orientation, non-discrimination. Remember, every time you hear the words non-discrimination, just know it means reverse discrimination. It means discrimination against Christians, basically.
Right, exactly.
Those advocating a moral view, it's discrimination. But the words, they change all the words. But now, I guarantee you, I haven't checked this. I think Scott and everybody here would back me up. If you go back to that New Jersey law, and I don't know when that was passed, but way back, it's one of the very early non-discrimination laws. I would guarantee you, when you look at the floor debate of that sexual orientation law, there will be no mention of the Boy Scouts of America. Right? Now, it banned non-discrimination based on public accommodation. A homosexual activist named James Dale, I think he was a Yale student, I think. I may have that wrong, but he marched in a gay pride parade. Somebody saw him and they said, hey, he wanted to be an assistant scoutmaster. And he said, you can't, Scout said, you can't do that because of our morally straight creed, right? He sued. Now, if you remember, that went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and what happened? We won. The Boy Scouts won. They would not be compelled to have atheist or homosexual scoutmasters in violation of their God and morally straight creed. Did the homosexual activists say, okay, we lost? Oh, it's over. No. They accelerated their war on the Boy Scouts of America to the point where they wanted to deny them any taxpayer affiliated, for example, if the Scouts were, docking their canoes at a public park, they said, you can't go here because you're discriminatory. And they waged a continued war against the Scouts, which escalated and escalated. And what happened? The Scouts getting big corporate money started to cave. First, the Scouts caved on homosexual scouts themselves, boys, homosexual identified scouts. They let them in. Then they caved on homosexual scout masters.
That's right.
Now you have a man who's identifying as sexually attracted to men. You're going to let him go out camping with your son? I think not. That's gone too far. After that, they allowed, I think it was transgenders, which would be girls who think they're boys, or pretending to be boys. And then now look what they've done. They said, we'll just let girls in. And now the Boy Scouts are going bankrupt. So this all-consuming revolution takes down one institution after another institution. All the institutions that made America what it is, they're taking them down. It's in the vanguard of assaulting religion, and now they're going after the church.
That's right.
And they're accelerating their war on the church because the church, the Christian church mainly, is the last bastion of opposition to this revolution. Let me read you a quote from a man named Harry Knox. He was at the time he was a religion advisor for a human rights campaign. He also worked for Obama in his Obama Faith Advisory Council. Harry Knox said, he calls himself a gay Christian. He said, get this, he said, my sexual orientation, in other words, his homosexuality, sexual orientation be another fake term to accommodate immorality. He said, my sexual orientation is, quote, an unchangeable gift from God, one for which I am very grateful, and it would fly in the face of my respect for God to give that gift back. Is that not astonishing? And that was back in 2009. Isaiah 5:20, evil is good and good is evil. Yes. Instead of homosexual behavior being a sin, he flipped it, and now it was a gift from God. Let me read another important quote, time's going fast here, by a man named Evan Wolfson, who probably was the top so-called gay marriage activist on the homosexual side. Evan Wolfson said, quote, I'm not in this just to change the law. It's about changing society.
Wow.
Every single aspect of their agenda is motivated by their desire to change society, even change the interpretation of the Bible to accommodate their sin.
That's right.
And Pastor Fisher had it right. Immoral behavior is not a civil right.
That's right.
And what do we know? What does Jeremiah say about the heart? Because this is also a feelings revolution. They have feelings, they have problems, a lot of times from unfortunate circumstances. Stephen Black was molested as a boy. But their feelings, there's confusion. And what does Jeremiah 17:9 say? The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Right? And so they want to claim noble civil rights status for behavior that God says is detestable, behavior that is changeable. I don't know, has anybody here ever met an ex-black person?
Obama.
An ex-Latino? Ex-Latino, no. But I've had the privilege of meeting dozens and dozens of former homosexuals. God is still in the business of changing lives through the gospel of Jesus Christ. And don't ever believe the biggest lie of all of this movement, which is that being gay, identifying as homosexual, bisexual, transgender, insert your perversion here, is who you are. Because that's the biggest lie of a movement that's built on a cascade of lies.
Gone too far.